So, Ryan, I'm going to start with you this week here on the pod. Andre Drummond heads to Cleveland. In return, Detroit gets Brandon Knight, John Henson, and a second-round pick. How do you feel about the deal? Are you happy with the move? Unhappy with the move? Thoughts on the return? I'll let you take the floor.
Is the move necessarily sexy? No. Is the return all that great? No. But if you were looking for a return for Andre Drummond, this trade, this move, moving him out of Detroit, needed to happen last year when there's a little more security and longevity on his deal. You were never going to get a big return for Andre Drummond. That is something we discussed on this pod.
Yep.
And we've discussed it since basically the beginning of the year, if a move ever needed to be made. Big return for Andre Drummond wasn't going to happen anymore this year. That being said, I'm not mad about it. I'm fine. What this does is gives the Pistons cap flexibility. And no, not necessarily for free agency. We can all let that go. The Pistons are not a destination franchise. They're not going to bring in the big-time stunners, especially with a weak free agent class this year. But what it does allow them to do is make trades. It allows them to take on a bad contract to get a real good type of asset. That's the flexibility this franchise hasn't had in years. And that is why I like this trade. Sure, losing Drummond is tough. We saw it in the game against New York. They can't rebound without him. But we've known that forever. Plus, also, we're tanking, so it shouldn't bother you this year. I'm okay with it. I enjoy the return. The trade. The return, John Henson, is he the center of the future? Maybe. I don't know. You're going 5 for 5. I don't know. He's putting up big numbers all of a sudden, so who knows? But I'm okay with this trade. I'm fine with it. The Pistons made it clear they did not want to spend almost $30 million on Andre Drummond. Nobody did. Everyone thought fair market value clearly was around 20, 22, 23 million for Andre Drummond. Not 28.7 or whatever it is. Only the Cavs, who are a franchise like the Pistons, are going to take on that kind of money for a player who isn't necessarily a superstar, a franchise changer. We know Andre Drummond's more old school NBA. He doesn't fit in with the space and the pick and pop type NBA that it is now. So I'm okay. Does losing Andre hurt? Yeah, but we're good.
Certainly thought that the Pistons could get a little bit more for Drummond. I was absolutely shocked of the return. You know, when I saw the initial tweet come out that Drummond had been moved.
Can I stop you right there for a second? I agree. That was shocking. When I saw Woj put out that the Cavs were finalizing a deal for him, I was like, oh, okay. And yeah, seeing the return was like, what the hell?
Yeah.
So I agree with you there.
I was expecting to see, a Sexton or someone of that magnitude back in the deal. Maybe not the first round pick considering where Cleveland's at as a franchise right now. But I was definitely expecting to see Colin Sexton coming back. Maybe Tristan Thompson to make the money work. The return of just 2 expirings and the worst of a second round pick between Golden State and the Cavaliers in 2023, it just shocked me. Brandon Knight and John Henson are 2 expiring contracts. They were in this trade just to make money work. In reality, the Pistons traded Andre Drummond for a 2023 second-round pick. That was the trade. In reality. And that shocked me. I'm not saying Drummond had amazing value. I know that centers that don't shoot and aren't, elite in that sense aren't necessarily needle movers in today's NBA. And I understand that completely. But Andre Drummond is a walking double-double, averages 18 and 16, 2 steals, 2 blocks a game, has grown as a facilitator, and is just 26 years old. I get he was on a deal where he had a heavy player option, but I still thought that they would get something of actual value in return. Because all that trade was a salary dump. That's all it was. It was the Pistons saying, hey, we don't want to pay Andre Drummond next year.
I mean, exactly. It shows you how much they did not want to pay him.
And that's why I kind of have an issue with the trade. Because for them to have that mindset now, when they could have had that mindset a year ago or 2 years ago, when Tom Gores was going out in the media and saying Andre Drummond's untouchable, we're not trading him, he's a franchise cornerstone. For that to now all change to the standpoint of we just have to get rid of him for nothing.
Let's just circle back here though. Tom Gores, for a long time, was all in on, hey, we need to win in Detroit. We need to have stars in Detroit. We need to do something to make money. We need to do something to get people to the arena, etc. So he got desperate. In a sense, the Blake Griffin trade was still kind of a move of desperation to bring some hope back to Detroit. And he thought, okay, well, you pair up Blake and Dre, and if Reggie's healthy, this team could have some success, and people will come out to the arena, and this will be great. This will be good. People will at least buy back into the Pistons, and we'll see if we can add through free agency or whatever happens. But it was about, hey, we got to make some sort of revenue here. I think he's finally realized that, hey, having Blake Griffin is nice, but it's not putting enough people in the seats to matter. Hey, having Andre Drummond can be nice, but with the amount of money you're going to have to pay him, your return on investment's not there. And the timeline of this team is off. And maybe, and I don't know this, but maybe Ed Stefanski finally had enough conversations with Tom Gores saying, Tom, listen, we need to commit now to rebuilding so in several years from now, we can build sustainable success. Moving Andre Drummond is a major step in that process. I have no problem with the trade because it allows you to move on. It allows you to move forward. And to me, it's not about the return. Would I have loved to have gotten a Colin Sexton in return? Absolutely. Would I have loved to have gotten a later first-round pick? Sure. Would have loved to have gotten even a future first-round pick 2-3 years down the road? Sure. But at the end of the day, Detroit's moving forward. And we're going to talk about Christian Wood later in the podcast, but you're going to get to see him play some featured minutes. Now you're going to get to even see a guy like Thon get some more meaningful minutes. And it's, hey, do or don't. Make your imprint or get out of town. We aren't going to sit here and linger with you. So it's going to force him to play and either get better or play himself out of a job in Detroit. It allows you to focus on your young guys. Now, there's some concerns with like the next game and Sekou Doumbouya only playing 13 minutes. Several young guys maybe not getting as many minutes as we would have liked or any minutes at all, like Lewis King. But at the end of the day, it allows you to take a step forward. Now, would it have been nice if Detroit could have worked something out with Atlanta saying, hey, fine, okay, let's drop the first round pick, but we really want DeAndre Hunter. Let's make this deal happen now.
I don't even think that was on the table. It really just doesn't sound like it was.
I highly doubt that was on the table.
You think if they would have dropped
more like a Cam Reddish, even then, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't.
You think if Detroit drops the first round pick conversation, they say, hey, we want DeAndre Hunter, what's it going to take? You don't think that there's a conversation there?
I think they'd have to attach someone like Luke to that trade. If you want to be completely honest, the market was so bad for Drummond. The market was so bad for him.
Right.
Clint Capella got more value than Drummond did, and I get that was part of a bigger trade. But
contract, though.
There was just no market for Drummond. Or if there was, the Pistons held off and tried to get more than they possibly could, and then those offers disappeared.
Have there not been stories and reports coming out that multiple front offices throughout the league think Andre Drummond has bad tendencies? Mm-hmm. Have those reports not been coming out?
Well, that's the thing. Andre Drummond's a national question mark, and he has a terrible deal attached to him. So for a lot of teams, you're looking at, hey, he's a half a season rental, and if he decides to stay, that's a $28 million investment for next year. Our cap flexibility goes. And for a question mark, not worth that money. Which is why people in Detroit have had issues with Andre his whole time here. It's always been, is he getting more money than he's worth to this team? Yes or no is a debatable whatever.
To be fair, that happens with a lot of players.
It sure does.
After they sign their contract. I think it's something that I talked about on a podcast maybe a month or so ago. But people go around and they talk about, oh, this player's been so good, this team needs to make sure that they sign him, give him the money he deserves, And then all of a sudden, he gets that contract, and he becomes an overpaid player. And so I think Andre Drummond was definitely one of those kind of guys. He was good. He was really good. And then he got paid and was like, oh, we're paying him this much money.
It's cyclical. That's something you and I discussed. Did we do it on the pod? I don't know.
I think we may
But we
have.
definitely discussed that. That's how it is. Player A gets drafted. Player A is a very nice player throughout getting drafted. It's time for player A to get paid because he's earned it. He gets paid. His production goes up, but it's not LeBron-esque. Okay, this guy's an overpaid goon. It's cyclical. That's how it goes in this league. That's all it is for every player, pretty much.
Right, and I talked with a lot of different people on the live stream that I did on the Palace of Pistons YouTube page moments after the trade was made, which, by the way, was a great time. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. Thank you to the few people that donated to Palace of Pistons through the Super Chat feature. That was awesome, but everyone kind of had the same thoughts about Drummond. It was a necessary move, but the return was quite lacking. And that's why when I look at what this team has been doing, it's something that they should have just looked at a year ago if this was the ultimate reality. If they knew that they could not go a season of failure and a season of shortcomings, if that was going to be the tip of the iceberg, then they should have moved on from Drummond in the first place. And I know this front office didn't do it, but they should have never traded for Blake Griffin in the first place. Andre Drummond's a good basketball player. I understand why teams don't want to pay a lot for him. It was a necessary move at this point in time, but the return sucked. And that's fine, but you also have to accept that the Pistons opted for cap space. And I don't think that was a terrible idea either. Because as Ryan mentioned, it allows you to take on a bad contract in order to get an asset next year, or perhaps in the offseason. It just opens up some possibility for you there. It also opens up possibilities and money to allocate to a Luke Kennard for his extension, a Christian Wood for when he becomes a free agent. Opening up the money is a good thing. And I guess if you're trying to find a bright spot, you have to look at that as part of the return for Drummond. You got back a second-round pick and $29 million.
Something both of you have hit on, and I think I've hit on too here is, why didn't they do this sooner? Move Andre Drummond last year, you know what I mean? And I don't necessarily think it's on the front office.
No,
I think it's on Tom Gores.
100%.
I think at the end of the day, Tom Gores is like, no, I want Andre Drummond here. I want us to be a contender. I want us to win. I don't care what position we're in. We need to get in the playoffs. And then you see by his comments he made after the trade deadline, or just before the Andre Drummond trade happened, that came out as, just making the playoffs barely and getting swept is not good enough. I think Stefanski and Rose and his team finally got through to him. When you see how this team is injury prone to the max, can't stay healthy, and can't quite put it all together, and you see guys like Blake Griffin taking a step back, how much longer can Derrick Rose do what he's doing? I know he's only doing it on 22, 23 minutes a night, but how much longer can he go like that?
Well, you see, he started playing more minutes, and now he's
hurt. So that's exactly it. Finally, the product and Rose and Stefanski and all those guys pounding it into Gores' head finally worked. And was it too late? Yes, because of the return on this trade. No good, to be honest. You got a second-round pick, a lesser of 2 second-round picks, really. But at the end of the day, you've got the cap flexibility. And that's what this team needs to move forward. Taking a step back to move forward.
Right.
That was crucial. Crucial. I know it sucks. I know seeing, John Henson and Brandon Knight for Andre Drummond, 18 and 16 a night, best rebounder of all time, multiple-time All-Star. I get it's like just a terrible-looking return optics-wise, but we have to look at the bigger picture. We have to.